It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
My pleasure, too.
John has an extensive biography. He's one of the founders of the environmental movement and also the founder of the Way of Nature. He's a shaman. Has woven together in the Way of Nature and all his work the core principles of many different traditions from around the world. Let's see, he's been a Qigong and Tai Chi practitioner and teacher for how many years?
Well, since the 50s.
Whoa, since the 50s. One of the unique things about John's work, and there's many unique things, is that he has brought the concept of the vision quest, the traditional vision quest, into modern day, making it accessible and just an extraordinary experience for the people in their daily lives and in our world today. So let's start with talking about that, John.
Sure, be glad to. I began going out alone in nature at a very young age. I remember talking with my parents and my grandparents about letting me go out when I was 5 years old to do my first little one-time solo in the wilderness. And at 5, they said, "Sorry, son, you're too young." So I tried again at 6, and they said, "Well, maybe next year." And so finally the 7th year came along, and I said, "Well, is it okay now?" And they said, "Okay, son, you can do it." So they put me out on my vision quest at 7, and it was a relatively short one, I think only 4 nights and 5 days. And I went very, very deep into the essence of myself, my own nature, and into the connection with the beautiful environment in the White Mountains of New Hampshire where I did that. And that was really the birthing of understanding the power of solitude when going into nature, and that human culture falls away and then nature comes into a direct connectivity with you that's very deep, very powerful, and teaches you. So nature was really my first and greatest teacher.
One of the fundamental aspects of your work is the weaving together of the inner, the outer, and the true nature. So would you explain for our audiences what you mean by inner, outer, and true nature?
Sure. One of the key elements of the Way of Nature is to explore this amazing balance and display of life that surrounds us in the world of the plants, the animals, the rocks, the stones, the beautiful, and the trees, all the beautiful things about our nature that surround us and make our lives so rich. The inner nature aspect is the world of perceptions, the capacity to experience through our senses and through our capacity to think and to feel the energy and to have emotions about this amazing, rich display of outer nature. And the true nature is the aspect of pure awareness, pure consciousness, pure source awareness that underlies outer nature and inner nature both. And we access that by following both outer nature and inner nature back into the place where they reside at the deepest level within us.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. You often speak about the 9 experiential fields and the working of the senses. Will you elaborate on that?
Sure. One of the beautiful things that happens when you're alone in nature is in that solitude, human culture falls away, and suddenly you find yourself surrounded by a new community. It's a community of all life and the environment. And in that community of all of nature that's really your partner in this existence, in this body, you begin to have your connections through the senses in a way that's totally novel and different than what you had experienced before. So if you could imagine having human culture fall away naturally and finding yourself in the company of the plants, the animals, the birds as your partners, good timing. All of these become your community. And in that community, you begin to go deeper and deeper and deeper and begin to realize that all of life is really your family. And you begin to refine that experience of the family through how you see things, how you hear things, how you taste, how you touch, and how you sense energy. And ultimately, you develop all these fields of experience and refine them in the solitude that arises naturally in the outer contact with the outer natural world. And through that refinement process, you go deeper and deeper and deeper into a state of deep connectivity and communion with the rest of life.
These days, so many people are just cut off from nature, from outer nature, and use nature more like a resource. What do you have to say to them?
Well, one of the predicaments that has gotten us into the fix that we're in now with the rest of life and nature is that we've developed cultures, human cultures, that are predominantly based on looking at nature as a basket of resources, something we take from. So we've become, our human cultures have been cultures of learning how to take from nature and not treating nature as a partner, as a companion in the journey of this amazing life we have. So one of the lessons that we have to somehow accomplish in this lifetime is to see nature as family, as partner, as lover, and that we are part of that web of life that supports all of existence. In many ways, you could say we grew up out of the body of nature, just like a flower grows up out of the earth. And if you think of yourself as growing up out of the earth like a flower, in the family of all life that surrounds you, as an expression of life itself, it's a very different perspective than seeing ourselves as something that descended from the heavens, got planted on earth, and then went out to take stuff. So the way of nature process gives you a way of reconnection to the beauty of outer nature, the incredible diversity and intensity of these natural systems that we're part of. And at the same time, it begins to open up and refine our emotions, our thoughts, our senses, our experiences of how we relate to the rest of life. Refine, 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 until ultimately we reach a point of very deep connectivity that reverses that pattern of just taking from the rest of life. And instead, we come into life wanting to be a full partner with life and give something back and open our hearts to our new family. And that happens very powerfully in the solitude of being in nature alone, because you're not falling back on the human cultural systems that are out of balance.
You've been a practitioner and teacher of Qigong and Tai Chi for many, many years. How has this influenced your relationship with nature and the teachings that you have brought forth?
Well, in many ways, the life force, the Qi, it's an energy that flows through all living beings. The birds, the animals, the trees, the earth itself, the meridians of the earth. There are meridians of energy and lines of energy that flow through the planet just like they flow through our bodies. So when you're out in nature alone, because your senses have become so refined, you begin to experience the energetics of the rest of life. And you begin to experience places in nature that have very strong energy flows. And you go to those places, and I often practice in those places because you receive the gifts of the natural, harmonious, balanced, and integrated energy that comes from places that are still in balance and harmony. So the gift of that kind of energy and that kind of Qi is extraordinary. It's very different than what you absorb when you're in a city or in a heavily industrialized environment. It's a very different experience. So I learned over the years of doing these deep wilderness retreats and solitude in nature that when I did my Qigong or Tai Chi practices, that nature would gift me back these extraordinary gifts of profound balanced energy and a sense of harmony and peace and connectivity with the life force of the entire planet and of other species. And we learn to receive these gifts through the practices of Qigong and meditation in the body of nature itself. These are the natural gifts that life forms give to each other when we work in a way that's in balance and harmony.
On that note, you promised to give us a little meditation teaching on how to reconnect with nature. Maybe we should do that right now.
Sure. Well, we're sitting in a very beautiful grove of trees right here, and I wish you could share this beautiful grove with us. Maybe we can find some way to bring in some tree images to our sharing right now. But one of the things that's a very simple practice is to go out find a tree in your neighborhood, in your backyard, somewhere close to you, and go up to that tree, connect with it, open your heart to it, give a little thanks for the beauty of its existence and being, and then listen. Ask, is it appropriate for me to come into relationship with you at this time? Would that be okay? And then listen. If it is appropriate, you'll usually hear either, some people actually hear a yes in their stream of consciousness. But almost everybody feels a kind of energetic opening, a feeling of joy or happiness, or a feeling of warmth. If it's a no, it's usually a contraction, a closing down, a shutting off. And if it's appropriate for you to make a connection with that beautiful tree, it will give you that kind of an answer. So once you've received that answer, you can walk up to the tree, and if you take your hands like this and move up to the tree, get kind of close and sense through the palms and through the lagoon points in the palm centers and the fingertips also. Sense the energy field of that tree. You use the power of your intent to connect to the field of energy of the tree. As you do that, you may notice that as you get close to the tree, of course, the field may get stronger, but you may also notice that the strongest place to sense the energy of the tree is not necessarily right up against the tree, but maybe back some feet or some meters away. So practice a little bit walking in and walking back. Sense where the energy field is strongest in your connection to the tree. Open your heart then once that energy field is very direct and strong, and really give some love and appreciation for the energetic relationship that's opening. That's a fantastic experience. And when that happens, of course, you're giving to the tree the beautiful, loving energy from your heart. The tree is radiating back to you the great gifts of the heaven chi that comes down from above and the earth chi that comes up from Mother Earth and flows through it. Trees transfer chi from Mother Earth into the sky, and they're bringing the energy from the heavens down through the tree and the crown of the tree down into the earth, very much like what happens with us humans when we do Qigong practice and Tai Chi in a harmonious way in nature. So if you stand like that with the tree, then you can, and you have that kind of relationship that's based on the heart and the radiance of the energy. Then go a little bit deeper, and on the in-breath, receive whatever the tree has to give you, and maybe have a sense of that energy flowing down from the heavens into the tree, and that energy flowing up from Mother Earth through the core of the tree, and then radiating out. All this on the in-breath as you breathe into yourself. Feel it entering your own being, filling you, and as you breathe in, it's rising up through your crown into the sky and flowing down as a gift from you to Mother Earth through your feet. Take your shoes off before you do this practice. Shoes have rubber usually on the soles, and that blocks your chi connection. So do this barefoot if you can, or if it's winter and a cold time or a wet time, then do it with maybe a non-rubber soled shoe or a moccasin if you can. You can also wear socks of a natural fiber like cotton or wool in the winter, and just use those. So you do all that on the in-breath. Then on the out-breath, you can see the chi from the heavens coming down through your crown and rising from the earth up through her into your body. And then as you breathe out, it radiates out from all your main chakra centers, and especially from the heart and the palm centers. As a gift back to the tree, it enters the tree's its field and flows up into the sky and down into Mother Earth as a gift to the heavens through the partnership with the tree. We call this reciprocal breathing. And so you breathe in and you breathe out in this kind of a relationship. It's kind of like if you were to draw a capital H, and each of you, part of the H is the vertical U, standing in this kind of relationship to the tree, and the other part is the tree itself. And then between you, the cross between the two vertical lines, is the exchange back and forth. It's this reciprocal breathing process. What that will do is unify you and the tree energetically in a beautiful way that opens up a deep energetic relationship with the tree and the beingness of the tree. It gives the tree a great gift, and you and the tree both can transfer this amazing joy and beautiful gift of life, and transfer it up into the heavens as a deep appreciation for the existence that we have, both as tree and human here on this planet, and then down into Mother Earth for all the gifts of life that this planet has provided us both. It's a beautiful way of using the breath to share back and forth. If you don't want to get quite so intricate as that, you can simply radiate from the heart on the out-breath and bring in from the tree on the in-breath and exchange back and forth directly, and have that sense of the roots of the tree and the crown of the tree connected to the heavens, your own crown connected to the heavens, your own feet connected down through the rooting energy in the K1 points in your feet down into Mother Earth. It's a beautiful practice.
It certainly is. Wouldn't it be transformative if this exercise was taught to every child starting in nursery school and onward? It would change the world.
Definitely. One of the great things we can receive in our schools is simply learning how to appreciate and respect and honor the rest of life. If there's honor, love, and respect for the rest of life, then the energy, the chi will flow in connectivity with that respect, honoring, and love. Very good practice for kids in school. When I was a young kid, I had a wonderful teacher who took me out into nature with the rest of the class, and we would spend some time in the forests and the fields and the mountains, basically just going out and appreciating the birds and the flowers and the trees. She didn't have these kinds of practices such as the one I just mentioned, but she loved nature. We all felt that. And so we picked that up and we began to reflect that kind of relationship. And instead of being a bunch of young, youthful takers, we turned into a group of lovers and appreciators of nature. And in a sense, the rest is history, in my case anyway.
In your teachings, you often speak about the influence of the Dao De Jing. I know you have a beautiful quote.
Sure.
That you'd like to read for us.
Sure. Glad to do that. The term "the way of nature" really came from this quote from the Dao De Jing. And so I'll just read it. I think it becomes pretty self-evident. Empty yourself of everything. Let the mind rest at peace. The 10,000 things rise and fall while the self watches their return, the self in the sense of the large self. They grow and flourish and then return to the source. Returning to the source is stillness, which is the way of nature. The way of nature is unchanging. So that quote became that really was the inspiration for what we now have as the organization, The Way of Nature, which is a fellowship of like-minded souls that see nature as our partner in the journey into the exploration of what is the meaning of this life. How can we deepen our connections to the rest of life? How can we make a deep connection to the essence of ourselves? And how can we uncover this fundamental mystery that holds both outer nature and inner nature? So that way of nature is, that pathway was inspired by this beautiful quote of returning to the Tao. Source and the Tao are really one.
You often speak about source awareness in relationship to all your teachings and discovering source awareness. For our audience, would you define what that means, source awareness?
If you follow back all the forms and the experiences of this life through sight, sound, taste, smell, touch, balance and movement, the experience of energy, the way in which you have emotions about things and the way you have thoughts about things. If you follow all of those things back into where they arise at the deepest level within, what they uncover is a very pure, very clear, open awareness that's similar to the vastness and openness of the sky. And that aspect of clear, open awareness is a foundational state that is absolutely unchanging and indestructible. That's what's pointed to in this quote. And that level of pure source is the level which ultimately, if you follow the pathway of the way of nature, ultimately it reveals that fundamental essence of yourself and of everything. That's also the level at which all life has a common ground. All plants, all animals, all stones, all forms of existence share that fundamental common ground. So that's where we are all one. At that level, we all arise from the same great mystery.
These teachings are at the source also of Dzogchen, Tibetan Buddhism,
Yes.
and many traditions. What I find when I talk to people is that they get a glimpse of this in their practice. And then all of a sudden they're caught again in all their dramas and cartoons, we might call it. How do you stabilize that practice?
Well, first there needs to be dropping away, we feel, from the normal patterns of psychosis and neurosis that fill most of our lives in contact with human culture. Once you've removed yourself from those patterns of neurosis and psychosis, you have a chance to open up something fresh and new. And that fresh and new relationship holds within it something extraordinary. And you go through a process initially of first finding out that there's a possibility of connecting, not being disconnected from nature, but actually outer nature, but actually having authentic and deep connections that begin to have real meaning for you. As you go deep into those connections, then you begin to have the experience of a kind of state where there's still you and the other being of nature, but like the tree. But there's also a state of fundamental unity that's there at the same time. Now, when you go deep into the experience of communion, you go deeper yet, and you start having experiences, if you're very lucky, of extraordinary unity. Out of those experiences of unity, if you're sitting in a sacred circle, as we do during our programs, we usually establish a sacred circle or medicine wheel or mandala, then you've had that experience with many of the forms of nature that you share your say, week or several days of alone time. Now, after that period of time, everything within your sacred circles you begin to experience as intimately and unified a sense of connection with yourself and with that deep level within yourself. And so you have an intimate family type relationship with everything that arises in outer nature. Then we take all of those relationships, we turn the experience of each one of the experiential fields back into where they arise internally. Where did they come from? In what kind of a field of consciousness do they manifest? And in what kind of a field of awareness do they dissolve back into when they're finished their particular way of being in a form aspect? And what we discover is that by following all those experiences back into the root of oneself, it uncovers the pure nature, the natural state that lies within it, the foundation of ourselves, the Tao itself, begins to manifest. It's pretty simple. It's so simple that most people miss it.
That's right. That's right. There is a phrase, do not remain in doubt. Once you have a glimpse of that state and start to stabilize it, do not remain in doubt. What would you have to say about that? How do you go beyond this doubt and really stabilize?
When you first engage in when you reach that point of returning to source, you do so with a complete conviction that this is the truth. This is the only way. This is the ultimate pathway into the pure level of beingness, the great mystery that underlies everything. That conviction itself sets a power of intent that then is a vehicle for a deep dive into the mystery. And you let go into the mystery and rest in the result.
This has been a real profound teaching for me and I believe for our audience. The way of nature is here. You have a center here in Crestone.
Mm-hmm. It's our headquarters.
Yes. So would you describe a little about that and the 3 pathways that you teach in the way of nature?
Sure. The 3 pathways are the path of wisdom, the path of the heart, the open heart, and the path of energy. And we've been talking a bit about the energy pathway here. So the way of nature really honors those three pathways. And the original opening of the way of nature began in part with two things. One was a commitment to finding the common ground that all the great traditions, all the great cultures, all the great pathways to enlightenment and liberation have followed. So I spent many years studying these different pathways and looking especially for what is the common ground that lay when I uncovered each one of these pathways and began to practice them. I've continued with many of those pathways, which are still an essential part of my own life and practice. But it's helped me by going deep into a number of different lineages to see what they have in common. And this is so important in this time because we're fighting each other over who's the best one, even having wars. And if we learn to find the common ground of what we share in common and the path to this liberated state, what a difference it would make in the world. We would then begin to establish relationships based on respect and appreciation for the diversity of the pathways that have unfolded. So what the way of nature has done is uncovered at least one way of seeing the common or experiencing the common ground of these many, many pathways. What do they have in common? So we have a practice set and a cultivation process that's based entirely on the common ground, not on a particular lineage. And I think that's a very important aspect. The other important aspect is that it's a pathway that doesn't rely really on buildings and temples and churches and all that kind of thing. We work with nature directly as the temple, as the church, as the sacred place. And so all of our cultivation is done in nature, with nature as the temple. Many of my students notice that when we do things together, many times animals, birds, beings of nature come to us and hang out because they feel so intimate and familiar with us. And we are so open-hearted and connected to them, so we dance together as a result. So the entire earth and all the environments of the earth are our partners, our lovers, our teachers, and the places where we do our spiritual cultivation.
I just keep thinking about how the world would change, how our experience of life would change if we could follow the way of nature.
Well, it's a natural way. In some ways, it's a very simple way. Right now, we're spending a little bit of time trying to get the word out about this process much more widely. It's an easy process to follow. It doesn't require you to even spend overnight in nature. We have designed ways to do just a portion of a day. And the results are extraordinary in terms of the depth to which people can go. We call that a renewal process. But we also, of course, have the retreats where we go out and we camp in nature alone with a buddy system where we check on each other to make sure that everything's okay. And I stay in the background making sure there's no problems. We provide a training before people go out to give them the tools to go deeper and deeper into the connection and to refine themselves into this amazing mystery of the mandala of all life and becoming a part of that. And then when they come back out, a lot of the emphasis is how do we maintain that? How do we integrate that back into the flow of everyday life with each other and with the outside world? How can we stabilize that? And there are ways to do that. But it takes a commitment to take the cultivation process back into your family, into your workplace, into the airport, into the train station, into the bus, into the bank, into the business, and integrate the core principles and processes that we give you to make that integrative step. And it's extraordinary what happens. Usually people's lives change profoundly from the inside out. So inner nature really defines the new pathway and reveals, in many cases, the true purpose for this lifetime. If you're out of phase with that, then that true purpose for this lifetime comes back into clear focus. And we begin to express our lives in that way. And usually that kind of insight is a kind of insight that liberates us from the pain, the agony, the suffering that our other ways of life have brought us, and brings us back with the gift of balance and harmony and respect and a much more integrated way of living with the family of life.
Isn't that the essence of the Tao?
Absolutely.
Balance and harmony. Isn't that what we're
Yeah.
all looking for these days? Balance and harmony, the middle path, the path of yin and yang, and finding that middle road where we can all connect with each other, especially these days in this world.
True.
So how do people get in touch with you?
Well, we have a website, wayofnature.com. We have some books that we published. I think one of them is this one right here.
This is
This is
such a beautiful book.
it's a nice one we have. It's actually a series of what we call leaves of the way of nature, and they all represent different things you can take out and practice with when you're in the woods.
Well, give us an example of one.
Okay, let me find a really nice one.
The teachings are so simple, yet so profound.
We have something called the 12 principles, and the 8th principle of those 12 is called active compassion. That's once the energy body has been fully liberated and opened, then the chi is available to bring the joy of life into your existence again, because the energy is unblocked, and the natural joy of life begins to be released. Once that joy manifests, the possibility for expressing and bringing that same joy to the rest of life opens. And so that we call the stage of active compassion. So this 8th principle is active compassion. Compassion naturally arises from the radiance of the open, unconditionally loving heart. And there's a visual of that with this young fellow with the ox and the water buffalo. And then on the other side is this beautiful picture of a gazelle with a bird picking fleas and flies off of its coat and helping clean it. So we thought that was a beautiful image to demonstrate the compassion that all living beings have for each other.
Very beautiful. Thank you so much,
Sure.
John.